Hey folks, welcome to another Broken Meeple review, and we're sticking with the Taiwan theme at the moment. I did Frenemy Pastry Party last video. This time, well, did you hear that? Yeah, we got a bit of a different sort of game here. This is the Raid on Takao. Yeah, this is a bigger game than the last one by far. This is from Miso Games, and Raid on Takao is... I'm going to try and get the history right, but basically, to put it in layman's terms, it's based on a period of history during World War II where a particular city, I wonder if it says on the back, just says, Kaohsiung? Well, Takao, another way of pronouncing it. Like I say, sorry if I'm mispronouncing these words, my language is not great. But this city was heavily bombed during World War II. And like one of the most bombed cities in Taiwan. And the idea with this is that you are playing a group selection of characters who are trying to muscle their way through the city to get supplies, food, etc., while also completing a mission objective based on a scenario. As well as this, they also have their own little narrative story elements that you are trying to complete in order to, well, not fall into despair, but also because they might give you some bonuses if you can fulfill them. There's plenty of characters, there's plenty of scenarios, I think there's like 5 or 6 in the box, quite a good amount of replay value, and it's essentially a full co-op where you must work together to, fight through the turmoil of the war, of bombers coming overhead and bombing the hell out of your city, while trying to find enough food to survive, while trying not to fall into disarray and despair, where you just give up and lose all hope, and survive until you've completed the objective, which usually lasts about something like 6 to 8 rounds, depending on which one you pick. It's, as I said, it's a full co-op, and to be fair, I feel we're missing those. I feel like we need more full co-ops at the moment. It's a nice refresher to have something like this. And certainly the co-op aspect is very strong here. Each of you has a unique character with a different special ability and different narrative goals. So you do feel very different from each other. Even your skill sets are slightly different. But you must work as a team. You cannot Lone Ranger this. You might have not found enough food, which means you're going to die out. And one of the lose conditions, much like the whole Forbidden Sky, Forbidden Desert type thing, is that if one of you dies, that's it. Even Robinson Crusoe, I believe, had the same thing out of reach, and of course, that means you can't let one person die. So you have to work together. If somebody has got all the food and one person doesn't and he's struggling to stay alive, that person's got to get to that person and give them the food. So there is a very good team aspect here. In terms of the components and aesthetics, I must admit, I didn't expect this level from, not from Taiwan specifically, but just from, like, Miso Games for the game like this. I mean, for a start, this is a very solid tin. I mean, it is a good quality tin. Now, I must admit, I am not the biggest fan of tins because I find that once they break, once they get damaged, that's kind of it. Although you can kind of argue that with games like I've got my 7 Wonders here that's like beat up out of submission. But if you can keep good care of your games, this tin is very nice, looks great. It is definitely one of the highest quality tins I have seen for a game. It is pretty cool. The second thing is the artwork, which, like I say, you can see from the box, it's a pretty striking cover. But from the back, hopefully, the light might be a little bit bad, but you can see that this is a kind of like anime style artwork. It is definitely that kind of Japanese anime style of game where, yes, it's based on the real history, but these are fictional characters. You could imagine that there is an anime show based on this. I could happily see this thing being a series. And for all I know, there is one, I just don't know of it. But you could just have all these characters with their stories going through a mini-series as they're trying to survive a war while getting through their own life development and stories. I could see it happening. And the whole artwork is based on this, so the board is nice and colourful, for obviously it's a war-torn landscape, so it can only give you so much in the way of colour, but it looks cool, and the art on the various components is pretty sweet. The components themselves are hit and miss, because on the one side you have a few chit tokens, and the boards are okay quality, they're thick, but you feel like they might fray after a while, and you've got a very basic die and things like that. The rulebook is fine for the most part. There are a couple of things you might have to FAQ after translation from, bear in mind, yes, this may have like Taiwanese writing on it, but this copy I have here is mostly English. I did have to look up a few bits that were only in Taiwan because this was like a pre-production copy, but the full production copy is available both in Taiwan Taiwanese, and English. So the full English copy will have a full English rulebook, full English player boards, the lot. But the translation does lead to a couple of ambiguities in places, not too many though. You know, not enough that you would like struggle to play the game without just a quick look up on Board Game Geek. It's nowhere near as bad as, say, you know, sorry to say, but, you know, Time Stories and Space Cowboys, you know, they had worse translation issues. This one, though, is actually pretty good, I gotta admit. The rulebook looks longer than it actually is because the most of it is set up and the different scenarios, which each have their own setup rules. But in terms of the actual game itself, there's not a lot of pages you gotta read, and it's got pictorial examples of most of the stuff you need to know. So the rulebook was actually a lot better than expected. I literally just played a solo game when I first got started. I just played 2 characters and thought, right, okay, let's learn from the rulebook. And it really didn't take long with the basic first difficulty scenario. On top of that whole scenario thing, you've got 5 different scenarios, difficulty 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Each play very differently. You know, 1 minute you're trying to solve your personal life goals. The next one you're trying to rescue like survivors from deep sea. Another one you're trying to save the animals. It's another one you're just trying not to get bombed. You're trying to save the city. It's quite you're trying to save something, but how each one plays out quite differently. And the difficulty does ramp up pretty substantially. So if you want variety, not only have you got, what have we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, about 8, at least 8 characters that you can play and 5 scenarios. The replay value is very, very good. Gotta give it props for that. You know, you're getting your money's worth in components, artwork, and replay value here. But of course, all of that is only as good as the game itself. And the game itself is fine. I mean, it's kind of on the level of something like a Forbidden Desert style game. I think it's on that level tier. You've got a couple of fiddly things to remember, like in terms of how the stamina works and how the tracks for, you know, despair and healing work. And of course, you know, the whole bomber thing, you just have to get your head around a couple of things. But once you've done that, it is basically Forbidden Desert style level of difficulty or complexity. So you'll be quickly going from place to place, learning like, oh yeah, I can move from here to here, and doing their own little puzzle of, well, if I do this, I can get from there to there, which means I can trade those yams, whatever they are, with you. That means you'll be able to feed yourself. Well, hang on, I need to go clear some of these ruins off, and hang on, that bomber is going to come around and shell us to hell and back. Just give us a dead. If we're not careful. Are we in a shelter? Can we protect ourselves from that? Can I take the hit? And I'll sort of like mention quickly on the components. Oh my god. There are 3 coins that you have that go around the side of the board. It's done by a die roll, so like I say, very Forbidden Desert style of complexity. And where these bombers land, they shell the entire row. So you quickly feel you're on the back foot. But oh my god, these coins. Can I find these coins in here? How you manage to get chits and sort of slightly frayed, you know, player boards, and yet you somehow manage to get these coins, and I'm gonna have to, no, stuff's come out, but never mind. Wow. You get 3 of these very, very, I mean, this probably won't focus that well, but 3 of these very chunky coins. The first time I'm seeing them, I'm like, I want to know exactly how, like, wow. I want more of these in games, please. I mean, these are solid. These are thicker than most metal coins you get in like Kickstarter games. I like the fact that the scenarios are more replayable. You know, Forbidden Desert, it's the same thing every time. It's just the things turn up in different places. And I know I'm comparing to that game a lot, but I'm just trying to get you into that mindset of simple gateway level co-op. Well, is this gateway level? Maybe gateway plus, we'll see. I think gateway next step level. But it's just that whole thing of, you know, I'm learning something here, but, you know, how the game goes will play differently. I'm going to use these 2 characters. I'm going to do this scenario. It will all, you know, play out in a much more different fashion each time. And say the gameplay is decent. I don't think it's anything that's going to, like, revolutionize anything. It's not something you haven't seen before. It's just a cool theme with a nice anime-style artwork on a simple co-op game. But I do have some negatives with some aspects of it. Firstly, the main negative I have is those narrative points I mentioned, where I said each person has their own story to try and, you know, solve. That doesn't work as well as I would like. Each person basically has 3 cards. And if you meet the goal, which could be anything from be at a location with someone, or use a skill, or don't use this, or be at a location. And if you meet it, you fulfill it. So you flip it over and it gives you a bonus. Whoopie-doo. But if you fail it, you can either persist until next round and suffer a penalty, or you can suffer a bigger penalty, move on to the next one, and get what's called regret, which gives you a bonus if your despair and health are within 1 of each other. Bearing in mind that you die when they meet, that basically means you get the bonus only when you're about to die. That's not a safe place that I want to be, really, just for a titchy little bonus that isn't always that useful, because they're very situational. But you only have these 3 cards every game. A level 1, a level 2, and a level 3. There is no variety with each character. Each character has a different story, like one is looking for love, one's trying to find a lost brother, one is just trying to make a name for themselves, one's trying to get the story, that kind of thing. But it's the same story for each one every time. It's the same 3 cards, and at the end of the day, it's basically just, do you want these 3 little bonuses or not? And a lot of the time you don't. I mean, if you get extra movement, that's fantastic, because moving around this board is not easy when it's getting shelled to heaven and back. But, you know, an extra dig, an extra search is only useful when you have a lot of players, because the piles will be so small in less players that having extra search icons is really pointless. So that was a bit I was more looking forward to, and it didn't quite deliver on that fact. In terms of the time, it takes about an hour and a half tops, with anywhere between 2 to 6 players, but you could play this solo by just controlling multiple characters. I find it kind of works best in the middle. 2 and 3, I just think there's not enough cards that you see, and again, you know, I feel that you want a nice group. 4 is a very good number to play this with. 5 is okay, but 5 and 6 is starting to get to the point where it's like, okay, this is taking a little while. You're going to a 90-minute mark, perhaps, unless you're very, very quick players. So 4 players definitely a sweet spot, but I found it still worked at 2. I played it solo with 2 characters, and it still works, but you're kind of going to want the bigger group. But yeah, I mean, all in all, it's a fine game. I applaud it for, you know, trying to bring a, you know, different sort of historical theme while throwing a sort of fictional anime style narrative on top of it. I think that's really cool. The fact that it's teaching you something about the event and the city and the history is all really good as well. I like games that sort of make you learn something. The time length is not one that overstays its welcome. I mean, 90 minutes with 6 players is a little bit long, but it's a co-op. You're discussing with each other what you do, you're involved, you're engaged. But definitely you want to try and keep it to about an hour max. And once you get the hang of setting the game up, it won't take you long to get to that point with an hour. It's not difficult to learn how to play, despite a couple of translation issues, but that's kind of normal when you're translating a foreign language into English. And it's like I say, it's a nice take on a simple co-op formula that we've seen before. Nothing particularly new, nothing particularly like revolutionary, but just something that's, you know, it's kind of, how can I feel? It's a bit like the Force Awakens Star Wars film in a sense. It used the same plot from A New Hope, but it's a refreshing change to the original like formula that we had. This one's kind of the same. We've seen this formula before, but it throws a nice different take on it. And as I said, the components for the most part are pretty solid. The artwork is decent. It comes in a big box tin. It will definitely have shelf presence. You know, I just wish that maybe the narrative that was explored a bit further. But of course, you will get your money's worth for replay value because of what, you know, the fact that you've got 5 scenarios and 8 characters. So there's a good amount of content for this game, but yeah, definitely it's a very simple co-op affair. Nothing that's really going to tax your brain too much. It's more a case of, oh my god, we're having to survive against the odds. How are we going to do this? And, you know, like I say, all in all, not bad. It's decent. I give it about a 7. I'd say a 7 actually. I mean, I would happily play this game if it was on the table. I think it's a very good effort from, you know, Miso Games to try and, what it looks like, you know, really go above board with trying to produce a game that looks striking and still plays in a nice, you know, simple fashion in a quick time. So I give it a 7 overall, above average game, and, well, above average, a good game. It's not above average, it's good. So yeah, rate on Takao. You know, sorry if I got some names mispronounced there, but all in all, pretty solid. If you're into like these Eastern games that you want to add these to your collection, you know, and you're trying to think, oh, I'm kind of bored with the Western market, I want to see what the Eastern market's got to offer, then check this one out. You actually might like it, especially if you're into that kind of anime style like artwork and storyline. So that's it from me. I'll see you on the next Broken Meeple review. Click subscribe if you like the content, and remember, whether you've bombed my nice little restaurant on the end of that street, I'll find another way to get my ramen. Oh, I do like ramen. I feel like ramen right now. So take care. I'll see you on the next episode, and remember, it's only a game.